So let's talk about what to do when people don't use your child's proper name and pronouns. So my experience is that there's two reasons why people don't. They can't or they won't. And you heard me right. And I want to tell you a story first before we talk about it. When my son Leo came out as transgender, about 6 months or so after the fact, someone in my life was not using Leo's correct pronouns. And the reason they told me why was that it was too hard. They couldn't do it, it was too hard. And I remember thinking at the time, like, what do you mean it's too hard? Like, you have to be kidding me. I felt personally that if it was too hard for anybody, it was going to be too hard for Leo's dad and me, because we had the longest history of using Leo's previous name and pronouns the most. Like every day, all the time. Like it was in our muscle memory, like the deepest, right? And I've talked about muscle memory before with changing name and pronouns, and how, especially if your child is older, like teenager, young adult, or an adult, you have years of that muscle memory in your brain and your mouth that you have to make a new association with when you are learning a new name and set of pronouns. And it's not easy, and it takes time and practice. And you have to do the work. And that's what we were doing. We were doing the work, and we didn't always get it right. And so we would just correct ourselves and keep going. And so what I heard from this person was that they were correct. It was too hard, but that they weren't willing to do the work. And so I was like, no, I'm sorry. We need to have a conversation about this, because this is not okay. Like you need to do this. This is important. And you cannot continue using the wrong pronouns, and this is why, and the whole thing. So that was an instance of someone who what did I say? They can't or they won't, right? So they can't. They just couldn't do it. And it's not that they couldn't do it, it's just they wouldn't do it. And so the next group of people are people who won't use your child's name and pronouns, and they have their reasons for it. And 9 times out of 10, the reasons why they are not using your child's correct name and pronouns is because they do not support the fact that your child is transgender. And that sounds harsh, but it's the truth. They may tell you that they support your child and the fact that they are transgender, but their actions are showing you that that is not the case. And we had some people in our life when Leo came out who told us that they supported us and our family and Leo, and then their actions after the fact said otherwise. The posts that they put out on social media, the words they used, like, it just was very clear to me that they in fact did not support us or our child, and some of those people are not in our lives anymore. And so you have to first figure out what is the reason why these people are not using your child's correct name and pronouns. Is it because they can't or because they won't? And then you have to decide how to proceed from there. If they can't because they're having a hard time, if it's a struggle, if they're trying and making an effort, and you notice that sometimes they get it and sometimes they don't, then that's a conversation you can have with them. You could offer them some tips or some advice or some ways to practice. And if you need help with that, I have a post on my website, I believe it's called Using Your Child's Chosen Name, where I offer like 4 or 5 different ways to help. It's intended for parents, but really it's for anybody, to practice with using a correct name. And I also have one called, I think, using proper gender pronouns, that likewise it's the same. It's like how to use correct pronouns, and you could have a conversation with somebody and be like, however you want to do it, I noticed you're having a really hard time using so-and-so's name and pronouns. Like, here's some ways that, you could have an easier time with that, and then give them some tips or whatever. Now, the reason I brought this up this week, one, is because it's International Pronouns Day this week, and two, because we're creeping on the end of October and the holidays are coming. And it's especially important for you as a parent to advocate for your child's health and well-being. And that means not exposing them to people who do not support them. And the holidays are tricky because the holidays involve family, and families are complicated. And sometimes in your family, you have people who do not support your child, and you have to decide, how are you going to handle that? And it might mean that you are going to go to Grandma Jones' house and your child's going to stay home. Or your whole family is going to skip going to Grandma Jones' house this year, and you're going to have Thanksgiving at your house, and you're going to decide how you're going to deal with Grandma Joan going forward, but you're not going to decide this year because you don't need to. You're going to decide this year what you're going to do going forward, but this year you're just going to stay home. Or maybe you're going to have Uncle Tim come over for Christmas because he's your brother, and you don't want to offend him by not having him come over, because that would cause a huge family thing, and you just can't even with that this year. But you're going to let your child go to a friend's house, or they're going to get to stay in their room and not have to interact with Uncle Tim because Uncle Tim is not supportive of your child. And I know that sounds rough. I couldn't say that's not the word I was looking for, but we'll just go with it. But your child's safety and well-being comes first, especially in your own house. So them not having to be exposed to people who do not support them really is the first thing that you need to consider. And if that means that people get upset because your child didn't go to Thanksgiving, or they didn't get to see them when they came to your house for the holidays, that's a them problem. That's not a you problem. And it's hard, and it's messy, and it doesn't feel good. And I know that. But it's just something that you have to work through, which is why I wanted to talk about it now, so you have time to think about how you're going to manage that this year, and you can work through however you feel about it before the holidays get here, and all of a sudden Thanksgiving is like in 2 days, and you're like, what are we going to do about going to Grandma Jones' house? And you panic and just do the thing, and it just blows up. I do have a post on my website. It's called What to Do About Difficult People. I think that's right. You can search for it. It'll pop up in the search menu, that talks about all this. And if you search for holidays too, I think I have like 3 posts about navigating the holidays that is more of the same, that will help work through some of that same kind of stuff. So you can read through those and start thinking about like how to have a good holiday season. And even if it's not this year, even if this year you're like, nope, we're staying home, and it gives you some ideas for what to do about next year, then that's great. And if you have navigated this already, or you have questions and you want to start a discussion, feel free to drop into the comments. We can talk about it and share our experiences to help each other out. That would be great. And I'm going to stop talking because this video is already 10 minutes and that's too long. We don't want to make Instagram crabby. And I will see you here next week. Okay, bye.